Today you are going to be creating a watercolor painting inspired by the Fauvist movement. And the Fauves used bright colors. We're going to be doing a landscape sort of esque. We're going to focus on a tree. So last time we practiced a tree. This time we're going to use some different color schemes, but you're going to need a large piece of the watercolor paper. So in your folder that says Calvert High School, you're looking for the large size watercolor paper. And if you pull it out of there and keep the top faced up, that is going to be the front. If you're in doubt, you're looking, one side has more texture than the other and one side has sort of a shinier sort of sheen to it. You want to be on the side that doesn't have the shinier sheen. And you're going to need your a pencil. You're going to need your oil pastels, water, your watercolors, your brush, and I would also get a piece of paper towel to blot with. So the way this begins is we will start first and lightly in pencil, sketching out. And I'm going to go kind of rather quickly as I would work, but you should use this video to pause and work through at your own pace. So if you missed class today, you should be, whenever you need to, pausing this video to get caught up and do the steps that I will be doing, because I'll probably be doing them quicker than you would. So start first with either side of your trunk. We're going to design the roots the same way as we did on last week's practice. These are like curved and curving triangular shapes. So they come to a point and they curve their way back and they sort of flatten out on the sides. We will have sort of like a ground line sitting just behind here, so just up a little bit on the sides. From the tree, you are going to sketch lightly, but you can still do sort of like the wider scribbling branches. I want you to create a Y that goes all the way to the edges. So we shouldn't be stopping early. The Y should move all the way out to the outer edges. And we're going to add another one here. On this side, I want you to create a Y, but sooner. So we're not going to wait till we get up here. We're going to do a nice big one down here and connect to those edges. Up the middle, we'll be doing sort of like a zigzagging back and forth. And then we'll sort of like just connect it. It'll be thicker on the bottom, so go up on the other side. And especially on these bigger branches, we'll create a thickness for them. And then we'll just start adding in some smaller branches. So wherever it connects to the tree, it will be thicker as it works its way across. And we don't want to do exactly the same thing. So if we put a Y here, we'll maybe come to this side. Maybe we'll just do one branch, or we'll do a triple, something like that. We want to create a variety of shapes, but they should travel all the way out to these edges, okay? Then in this background, I want you to do sort of like we're going to do, it's like hills, but sort of mountainous hills. So we'll go up and down. On this side, we'll do two. They'll be a little bit smaller, and sort of like a smaller one in the background, and then a back one here. Okay, now we're going to get our oil pastels. You want your blues, so you should have a dark blue, a light blue. You should have a dark green, a light green, and a violet. Okay. We're going to start first in the tree, and we're going to use our darker blue, and we're going to trace the outline areas. So I'm tracing, and it's not going to be as solid on this paper as it was on the paper we used last week, because this paper is the watercolor paper and has a lot more texture. So when we're doing this, some areas should be left thick, and we're tapering too small. So when it comes off of the tree, it's thicker, tapering too smaller. And I put my folder underneath, so if I go off these edges, that I'm not getting it all over my table. Here's my nice big branch here. Work it out to that edge. And I'm going to be adding some other branches as I go into some of these areas that I think look a little bit empty. I don't want anything that looks too empty. My branches should be like filling this space. Heavier down at the bottom. I mean thickness wise on the branches. I'll put another branch here. And I do want to work it out to the edges. Don't stop short. Just let them continue out. This is kind of empty right here. Okay, now in the trunk, I'm going to do just short lines that build up. I'm leaving some white showing. And then I'm going to go back in with my light blue. And I'm going to fill some. I'm not worried about getting rid of all of the white, but I am going to get rid of a good portion of it. And I'm filling. So again, if you need to stop the video to get caught up, if your branches aren't going out to the edges, you should stop the video in here. I may add some branches on their own, but I'm going to trace next to these branches. That'll thicken them up some as well. And I'm going to fill some more of this white. Okay. Now, in the bottom, so there's my tree, in the 2 values of blue. Then I'm going to come into where the grass is. I'm going to start with my darker value. And I'm going to create sort of a barrier right at this back edge of this with the darker one. And then I'm going to create texture, short strokes of texture with this dark green. And here I'm going to start changing the angle. So darkest and dense at the back. These are just short little lines. And I don't care if they crisscross over each other, it's fine. And then I'm going to come in with my light green. And I'm not worried about filling every white space, but I do want to get rid of most. And if you have to peel the paper, you can peel the paper or turn it over. Okay, now so we're done with the greens, we're done with the blues. Now we're going to use that violet color, and we're going to go heavy with the violet in the back. And then I'm not going to fill this thing, but I'm just going to go at the top, and I'm going to go sort of one direction. And I'm going to trace these out here. Add my little mountain back here. And again, I'm going to add just some scribbles coming down from the top. These are going to be my lighter values. I'll eventually be putting on some dark violet. Okay, now I'm done with my oil pastels and I am ready to paint. We're going to start first with yellow. So you can put some water into red, orange, and yellow. Those are going to be the first 3. And we're going to first start by painting where our sun is. And we don't want to lose our sun. So we're going to not paint over this whole thing. We are going to make it meet with our next color, but we don't want to lose that yellow roundness of our sun. Next, I'm going to go into the orange, and I'm going to first go outside, leaving some gap before I make them meet, and then I'm going to have them meet right on the edges. Okay, now I'm going to go back into my yellow paint, and I'm going to wash with this yellow out from here. So making sure that there's lots of water in this, and if there's not, I just dip back in. I don't want to mess though with, I want to keep that round yellow sun. So even if I sort of like go into where the orange is, I don't want to really try to mess with that. I'm going to go back here and pull my orange ring, and I don't want it dark, but I'm going to pull it around there, and then I'm going to push out from there. I don't want to lose my sun. And I'm going to be washing some orange into the yellow, creating like a yellow-orange, like a sunrise or sunset. I'm going to pull that right down to the tops of our mountains. And once I have like the yellow in, I'm going to pull some more orange. And I'm going to do some sort of sideways looking lines around. I don't want to just have a ring either. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, but I can go more quickly. I'm going to lay down some yellow first. And I'm going to not paint in my tree. If I want to paint around it. Pull a little bit of orange. I'm going sideways. I'm not covering all of my yellow, but I'm letting it sort of bleed into there. And if I get anything that's too bright, I'm going to tone it down with some water. Okay, now I'm going to start working my way up. So I'm going to do some washed out orange. And the next color I'm going to put in here, so you've got to follow along with the video. If you need to pause. I'm going to put some washed out orange as I go up. And then I'm going to wash it into like a washed out red, but not really red. It's going to be just a little bit pink. So when I put this down and it looks red, I want to go back in there with lots of water, and I'm going to let it overlap my orange. And I'm going to let it wash up from red as it goes up. It should be like a pinkish color, not really a red anywhere. Like you shouldn't go, look, there's red. But you're going to let that wash into the oranges. That's it right below. And then from red, if we are thinking about the color wheel, the next thing we're going to wash into is a tiny bit of violet. So I'm just going to put my brush down in the violet, and like you won't even really know it's violet either. You're going to just wash it so it's light into that layer of red. And then at the very top, so if you need to, pause as you do it. At the very top, we're going to do blue, but we don't want it to be too dark. So I'm going to put my blue down and then wash a bunch of water into it. And the blue, I can go right over the top of the tree. So there should be no white showing. If it got too dark, you can blot. If it looks like it's puddling, blot it up and blend it a little bit. Okay, now let's go into the tree itself. I'm going to go into the tree with some darker blues. So almost, I wouldn't say we're really dry brushing, but what we're doing is we're using a little more paint than water, and we're going to wash into those areas that are white on our tree to sort of fill our tree. We're trying to control how much, we don't want anything that's like pasty looking. but we want to add another value of blue into the tree. We want to get rid of the white, so we are going to still use some water, but we're going to be filling, so the bark on the tree should range from dark blues to medium blues to light blues. We're going to continue that right up into the branches. If the branches are tiny and small up top, we're not going to mess with those. But if there's white areas in here, we are going to fill those. And there's a white area here in this big branch. Okay, now, so we're going to get rid of all that blue. Or all the white, excuse me, sitting in that blue. But we're controlling our tip. We don't want it bleeding out on us into the areas that are orange and yellow. And if it does, we're going to blot and then clean it up. All right, 2 more steps. We're going to go into green. We're going to wash green, and it's going to resist where the oil pastel is, but the white areas that are down in the bottom should all be gone. So we're going to brush green on top of any areas in the bottom. So right out to the edges, you're filling any white with green, and then I'm going to blot up where it's got a lot of water sitting on top of the oil pastel. Still going to be leaving the green into the areas of the white paper. I might add a few darker ones. I'm going to add a little bit darker at this back edge. And then last but not least, so all white is gone from this green area. Some are light green, but no white left in there. You see white, get in there with that brush. Then I'm going to do violet. So I'm going to clean my brush. And in this background in here, I'm going to be doing violet. Now I don't want it to be as dark as the violet can get. I'm going to make sure that I use enough water. And I'm going to fill all the white areas in here. If I overdo it, I'll blot up a little bit. And I'm going to do the same in here. It's pretty dark. Definitely need to lighten it, so I'm going to wash my brush out and then wash. Now, when you're done, you should still see the yellow of your round sun, and you should see your blue tree, your green grass. Any areas that are white should be gone. I mean, if you see a tiny little bit, that's different, but like I should not see any patches of white where I'm like, wow, why is that white? If you're seeing anything, go back and clean it up. I see one right here. I'll go back in and clean that up. And you'll let it dry. While you're letting it dry, you will wash your brush by tapping it on both sides. Put it back in here. If your watercolors are really wet, leave them open to dry if you can. Once this thing is dry, you will photograph and submit. And you're done.